Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dynasty Daddy YouTube channel. And today I wanted to kind of talk about the future, right? All the hope, all the excitement of the 2025 rookie draft class coming into the NFL. I know a lot of people are really focusing on the playoff push right now in the fantasy football space, but some teams, it just wasn't your year. But you might be stockpiling some of those picks, and a question I get a lot is this 2025 class good? Should I trade into it now? Should I trade out of it into future years? Like, I'm not feeling good about it. I'm feeling great about it. So I figured let's go over some of the top players that are going to be in this draft class. So kick back, get comfortable as we dive into the top prospects in the 2025 class. And I will tell you, in some ways, it may be better than the 2024 class. And in other ways, I think the 2024 class had some higher end talent that might be more tantalizing. So let's jump on into it. First up is my personal Heisman, Boise State superstar running back Ashton Jey. I mean, he has been so electric throughout this year. Currently, and this is after, I believe, 10 games, he has over 1,800 rushing yards, 26 touchdowns, and 7.4 yards per attempt. Big things about him are his elite contact balance. He's able to kind of get those extra yards after contact. He's very difficult to bring down. Jey really matches up with some of the best college running backs we've ever seen, with a missed tackles force percentage of 44.4% so far, compared to Saquon, who had 34%, Bijan had 38%, and Christian McCaffrey had a 19%. He also has a 7.25 yards after contact per rush, which is honestly insane. Barkley, Bijan, and McCaffrey are 3 yards less than that at least. So he's really just, going to be one of those elite level prospects that we get every couple of years at this point. Some player comps that I see is he kind of reminds me a little bit of like a D'Angelo Williams. I don't want to say LaDainian Tomlinson just to be like, hyperbolic, but he definitely has a lot of D'Angelo Williams, kind of 3-down back workhorse. He does have experience as a pass catching back. Doesn't get a lot of it currently in the Boise offense, but he had over 500 yards last year receiving. I think from a dynasty market perspective, we're going to really just look at, he's like Bijan plus. I think he'll probably come into the league and be RB1. And this is part of the reason I say in the 2024 class, especially in 1QB leagues, Ashton Jey is one of the most premier assets you can get in dynasty and fantasy football. Frankly, Ashton Jey should be the 101 in all formats, Superflex and in 1QB. Next up, let's look at the wide receiver 1 and probably 102 in all formats, Taro McMillan, or T-Mac for short. T-Mac currently has 69 receptions, 1,136 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Even though his QB play has not been amazing this year, he's still third in receiving yards in college football. On top of that, he's an amazing yak machine, yards after catch, and has a big frame and massive catch radius. He's similar to a player like a Mike Evans or Drake London, and I do think kind of his market value coming in to Dynasty will be that of kind of a Drake London, probably around George Pickens-ish tier. Personally to me, whether it is 1QB or Superflex, he's probably the 102 pretty confidently. Next up, let's dive into my third tier of players, and this is kind of where it gets interesting, right? We're going to start off with Miami Hurricanes starting quarterback and potential Heisman candidate Cam Ward. Cam Ward currently has 3,494 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions with a 98.4 QBR that currently leads college football. He's an amazing arm talent, and he also has the improvising skills that you would want from a quarterback that can extend plays. He can kind of get caught up playing hero ball sometimes, but when you're in that Miami offense, sometimes you need to do that. A comp that I see, and I agree with, is kind of Geno Smith. He seems similar to kind of a Geno Smith style of player, and I think dynasty market value, he's going to be slotted in around where Bo Nix currently sits, which is a great spot for a first-round quarterback. I don't think this year we have high-end quarterbacks, like a Jaden Daniels or, even a Drake May type where they go top 3. But I do think Cam Ward has the potential to really break into that top 10 dynasty quarterback based on the situation, how he performs in the NFL. Personally, to me, one QB, we don't really care about quarterbacks, but in Superflex, I do think he's currently my 103. He's very close with this next one, but I think the physical traits that he has translate better. Next up is easily the most talked about player in college football is Shadur Sanders, quarterback for Colorado. Sanders has 3,222 passing yards, 27 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions, and a 76.5 QBR. He has an elite passer and processor and really good at, processing the defense, passing it and passing down the middle. I think the most common comp I can think of is kind of like a Bo Nix. Doesn't have the most elite arm talent, but can find his target, pass accurately, and frankly, he's probably more refined than a Bo Nix coming out of college. I do think his market value will be similar to Bo Nix as well. As I said with Cam Ward, both of these players are very close. It's kind of like, which one do you want? And frankly, from a dynasty perspective, tomorrow I might wake up and pick Sanders. Like, Sanders does have the name, has the pedigree, and the hype around him that I could see him being worth that next level investment. But right now, in Superflex drafts, he's my 104. Next up, let's look at Luther Burton, wide receiver from Missouri. He's had a somewhat slow start, but has all the traits of an elite wide receiver. Currently, he has 53 receptions, 574 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns. He's an explosive yak receiver, but does have a limited route tree and has happened to just disappear in some games. He did show up big time in the South Carolina game this weekend, so that is at least reassuring long term. I think a real NFL comp would be someone like a Randall Cobb, who isn't necessarily the alpha number one, but a integral guy to the offense that you can scheme into a game plan. And I think his market value will be kind of like a Keon Coleman type or Xavier Worthy, where it's some games he'll have big games, some games he'll just kind of be a side piece or a distraction. And that's kind of where I see him. Hopefully he can develop as that next level wide receiver in the NFL, but currently there are some question marks there. I see him as around a 105 to 107 pick, depending on his landing spot and kind of how he finishes out the rest of the season. Last player I really dive into today is Heisman favorite Travis Hunter, who's easily the most confusing prospect we've ever had in a fantasy football perspective because he can be both a high-level cornerback and a high-level wide receiver. Hunter has 74 receptions, 911 yards, and 9 touchdowns while also playing cornerback. He has a high football IQ and a ball hawk, which obviously is why he plays on both sides of the field. The hardest part is just going to be what position will he play. He has the potential to be the number 1 overall pick in the actual NFL draft, which would be crazy. But since he does have that versatility on both sides, it'll be interesting to see how NFL teams deploy him. So that's kind of where it's hard to really write him in somewhere. If he really was full-time wide receiver, he's definitely the wide receiver 2 in the class, in my opinion. But since he has this cornerback thing, we don't really know what his usage will be. And even if he is an elite wide receiver, if he's only being used in certain packages, that's just not going to translate to fantasy football too well. It is an interesting IDP player for people that play in IDP leagues. So I think it's kind of hard to figure out where he sits right now. So I can't really give a ton of comps in terms of where he would be in the market. That wraps out most of our 2025 elite level prospects as I currently see it. I can obviously talk about this forever, but I'll save that for later videos, especially as the draft comes closer. We get more information with the draft, combine, all of that. So this is obviously an early look, but it's good to kind of know from a top level what the talent looks like and then also the depth, right? Which is what I'll mention here. This class past the top players is very deep at the running back position and tight end position. So those second round picks, third round picks are going to be able to scoop up a lot of value. Whereas like last year, we didn't really have as many running backs that really, made it on the radar. So that's something I would definitely keep my eyes out for. I have a few leagues myself where it's like a bunch of holes at running back, and I just expect to go down the list and pick all these running backs like Hampton, Junkins, Henderson. There's probably even some I forgot, but I mean, even those guys are going to probably be first round picks in fantasy drafts, when push comes to shove. But if you like what you saw in this video I put together, please subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment. Definitely engage with it. I love to hear y'all's feedback as I try to get used to talking in front of camera more and all of that. So I do really appreciate all the support from the previous videos I've made, and I hope to see this channel grow and be something that also motivates me outside of just building the website that everyone loves to use. So I do really appreciate that, and until next time, peace.